is 0.04, and we will tag as such in our repos. And because we wanted to follow the most responsible path to release, we'd like to go over all our test environments to be able to gather feedback and find potential problems early on. With that, we'll start with Flint. As you guys know, Flint is our, let's call it like the most unstable testnet that we have. That changes will come in soon and very often as soon as new features are added. I would like to start there on Monday, March 23rd, which is next Monday. With time is around like 5 p.m. UTC, and we will require all the validators that are in Flint to pull down the new version, build the new chain, depending on your environment, and restart it again. The main thing here is that we might need to have a database cleanup, depending on the changes that we're testing right now. So we might require you guys to clean up all your databases for Flint. The plan here is to be on Flint at least for a couple of days, basically one era plus a little bit more to verify that all the extrinsics and rewards are working properly. And we will add all the details about it by the end of this week on our Validator Slack channel on the Centrifuge community Slack. So you guys on Monday kind of start with the setup. As you can see, then we will go to Amber. Amber will happen a couple of days after, around the 25th of March, and the process is the exact same for Amber. So we would like to have everyone validating on Amber by March 25th, 26th. When I give 1 day, so everyone can update all the validators. At least we'll need to have half of the validator set to ensure that the stability for at least 2 weeks. Again, for the same purpose, to verify that everything is working fine, and we can then move up to the next stage. So yeah, next Monday and next Wednesday, we'll need a little bit of your help to get all set up on this 3-4 days. So we'll need you there to be active on the community channel where we will put all the notifications. Then after 2 weeks that we verified that it's been running smoothly, we will do the soft launch. And the soft launch is basically a new environment, Mainnet, that there is no need to migrate any setup because there's no environment yet for you guys and for anyone. So the only thing that we require there is to for you guys to, of course, bring down the new release and started following the most secure practices that you've been following. But in the meantime, between the March 25th and April 8th, around it, we will need you guys to send us your addresses that you want to use as a validator, so we can add them to the Genesis file for all you guys. But yeah, so for the soft launch on Mainnet, we'll ensure that to our best knowledge, that there will be no need for a hard fork due to any missing feature or any parameter change or a known bug. So we can ensure that the network has been validated by the community of peers with external validators from day one. And yeah, the main difference between a soft launch and a main launch, not the main launch that you can see at the end, is that then it will just be more publicly visible, and it will be a bigger audience. It will roll out to a bigger audience. But there is nothing, technically, logistically, or architecturally that we will like to change. We will have to change in between, because that's why we do the soft launch first, to find all these problems early on. So for this, we'll like to have at least 1 to 2 weeks of stability for after we have reached the desired number of validators, or from since we have released we have reached the initial number of validators for the validator, but based on the validator program. And then after, we would like to do an on-chain upgrade on all the environments. And the main reason for that is that we would like to add, a couple of features that we have in our backlog that we're finishing up now, and they need to get audited before. And we would like to learn as well, like how do we, get the, experience on how to perform the best way and upgrade on a network with external users and validators that are, live, and how to best approach all the community notifications and learn from it, and don't get surprised in the future if we need to do that, and be the best prepared for it. So yeah, we would like to go through the standard release cycle. So we will have to pass through all these environments. And the idea is to, by April 10th, we will start with Flint with the new upgrade. So we will basically need to do the same thing that did earlier for the 0.04 release in Flint for you guys. Then a couple of days later, after we verify that's stable, then we will move it to Amber. And in Amber, by April 13th, we will keep it there for a week for just to see that it's stable or not. And then we will move on to Mainnet for 3 or 4 weeks by April 20th or so. Again, all this will be notified in a timely manner in our community Slack. So stay tuned for all the for all the changes that will be happening and all the steps on the way. Yeah, so then lastly, the main launch. And the main launch we have scheduled for mid-May based on the time before, because we always wanted to ensure for mainnet, at least for the main release, that at least 3 or 4 weeks of stability. So it puts us in around like mid-May to the main launch. And yeah, like the main thing is, as mentioned, the difference between the soft launch and the main launch is just that it's going to be released to a wider audience. But there's nothing technically that needs to be done. There's no changes on the Genesis file. It will just be ready and more visible the project will be more visible to everyone. Yeah, and of course, if we find any problem that will require a major change, and major changes, we will coordinate accordingly. So it will be all done through the community Slack. So yeah, this is the timeline that we came up with. Is there any questions around it? Concerns?
If not, maybe I'm just going to zoom in on a couple of the things Miguel just mentioned, just to repeat them, solidify them, and then maybe it'll help you with some more questions that you might have. So again, by the soft launch, we really do mean mainnet launch. It's a live network, and we want to launch together with the external validators, which is you. And so, as Miguel mentioned, we need your stash and controller addresses for the Genesis file once we do launch mainnet. So our ideal deadline will be the 1st of April to get this from you. I think most of you, I've reached out and mentioned this to you already, but just in case, here it is again. So please do generate new addresses for Centrifuge Chain mainnet. It's a different address than is the default for both of our testnets, as well as for Polkadot Kusama. So you'll need to use a different address for our mainnet. And then that again is your stash and controller addresses that we'll need. And then another note for you is that our token holders, they will be including their staking preferences already in the Genesis file. And so they will already be staking towards you as a validator set. So all the validators that are part of our program, we will be putting together some information about you for the token holders so that they can already submit their preferences to be included in Genesis. And so for the purpose of our soft launch is really to monitor the stability of the chain. And so we call it a soft launch instead of, and we distinguish it from the main launch just in terms of rolling it out to the rest of the community. So we'll be onboarding our partners as soon as we do the soft launch, but we won't really be making a lot of noise and opening this up to a wider audience until we have certainty about the stability there. And so then our on-chain upgrade, we're doing this because we want to see what the on-chain upgrade is like, and we also want to add new features that that are still being audited. And I would say the biggest one here is our bridge to Ethereum, which is pretty exciting, I think. And as Miguel mentioned, this is going to follow the standard release cycle. So in addition to upgrading next week, when we do this first upgrade, you'll also please pay attention to our community Slack for this on-chain upgrade being released to Flint and Amber, and then again to Mainnet as well. And then the main launch, again, is just no changes to the Genesis file. We'll just start rolling it out to a wider audience of users once we feel comfortable with the level of stability that we've achieved after a soft launch. So just repeating again, we really do need you in the community channel. Please be attentive to the Validator channel for updates from us. I think that's going to be super important as we go forward with these upgrades so that everything moves smoothly. And please do ask questions and be proactive there if anything comes up for you. So if there are any questions already, maybe feel free to ask. I can go back to the timeline slide if you need. Otherwise, I can move forward through some FAQs.
Yeah, I have a question about the soft launch slide. So I think with Substrate, it's been so far like really hard to have a launch like from Genesis. So usually what happened with launching chains, like some trusted validators already started the network, and then eventually the people that were in Genesis were able to create their accounts, stake their accounts, and then eventually create session keys and be a part of the network in a next era or a next session. Are you guys planning to do this differently? Since also you have already gave staking preferences in Genesis?
Yeah, so we're planning on launching, we have a mainnet preview running, and so that's internal. And this is where we're basically testing these things. But our ideal would be to launch Genesis already with the validators in our validator program included in the active set of validators. So a bit different, yes, compared to other chains.
Okay, so this would require also giving our session keys then?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions? All right. So on to some FAQs. I think there's of course always bugs coming up. This is more just to be clear that we're of course following bugs that come up. This is just one example that was mentioned to me, this memory leak issue, and we're aware that Parity is actively working on it. The way that we've dealt with it is that if you feel you're getting to a critical point in your setup, just restart the validator after probably 2 weeks. And I would say, I mean, as bugs come up, don't hesitate to bring them up to us. It's something that we want to be diligent about, of course. And then I'll also open it up to you to ask if there's any other bugs that you faced that you have questions about. Nope. Okay. So another interesting thing that we've worked on, well, that I think is exciting, is the multi-account palette. So this code is soon to be merged. So please stay tuned for updates here. This is something that we plan to use for our validators. It's not something that's necessary for our testnets, but we'll provide a guideline to be able to use this yourselves for mainnet. So that's something to watch out
maybe
for.
Miguel or I can give just a quick sort of overview of the different like key, like, or different ways of having accounts. So like sort of going from like sophistication and security, starting like the easiest, of course, is just a regular key that exists on a computer in memory on the device. Is like just, of course, like the regular way, and that's how you'll have to use that's what you'll have to use your session key, the session key for the validator, and so just anything that you want to programmatically sign transactions with, right, or sign statements with. Then then there's like two different ways that sort of are built into Substrate as a core. Well, the one is just support for Parity Signer, which is a mobile app that you can install on an air-gapped device, and sort of to have your key live on that device, and you use a scanner, like your camera and QR codes to communicate the payload that you want to sign back and forth. And so that is like a very user-friendly option. Like maybe I can show, I have a test version here. Right, so like, actually, no, I don't have it handy. So Parity Signer is like the slightly more like better way to do it, but that means like you have some human interaction every time. We're working together, so we're working on bringing a release, or getting Parity to release this, the Parity Signer with our network added as soon as we're live. It does depend on the Genesis block being mined and being fixed. So we're going to do that. So it'll come after the go live, but it'll be available shortly after. And then there are like two multi-sig. Well, there's three different kinds of multi-sigs that you can use. You can use just Schnorr threshold signatures, for which the protocol, there is support in the protocol, but as far as I know, Subkey is actually not supporting generating these keys and generating these signatures. So that is something that we can add without modifying the code, though I don't know what the status of that is in like for like us using it, but also for just the Polkadot ecosystem using it. But then there are two sort of on-chain multi-sig methods. And if you go back to the multi-account slide, that is one of them. So built into the core like list of palettes that Parity is releasing is what they call the multi-key, I think, palette, where you can create a multi-signature with different keys and submit the signatures on chain. But the downside of that palette is that you cannot change the signature set of these keys. So if you want to change who is required to sign a transaction from that, like with that in that set, you actually need to generate a new address, and therefore like you need to move all of your funds over. And so one of the issues with that is, for example, if you have your stash account set up as a multi-sig, and you now want to remove one of the signatures and add a different one, like add a different entity to sign, then actually you would have to first get your funds out of the stash, or like sort of stop staking, move your funds to a new address, and then start staking again, right? And so they're doing these things, also doing other things, like it's quite complex. And so we started sort of what we built is a multi-sig, a very simple multi-sig on chain. That doesn't have this. So instead of deriving the address that's used for the multi-sig based on the keys and the threshold for this multi-sig, we just generate an address from I think semi-randomly. I have to check, where you can now sort of change the key set by just submitting a signed transaction by the current set of signers. So that will allow you to like throw people out of the set of signers without changing your address, without having to do anything on that side. And so that's sort of the most flexible, also most expensive in terms of fees paid on chain, but sort of most extensible. So yeah, that's what we're going to release.
Cool. Any questions there? Okay. I had the question come up about the identity palette. That is something on our roadmap, but most likely for after the launch. And Miguel, do you want to add anything there?
No, I mean, we have it on our roadmap and it's scheduled, but it's something that we would like to tackle after we, focus on the stability. So if it can happen for the upgrade, the on-chain upgrade we're gonna do, great. If we cannot make it there, then it will happen afterwards. But it's on the roadmap.
Okay. Cool. And then I had the other question come up about the maintaining our own website. And so the plan is to maintain our own website for the time being. I'm not sure if we have any other information there other than this.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to commit to doing this for the rest of time, but like the concern with like it breaking for Edgeware because there are changes deployed that sort of were only compatible with Kusama, I think as a valid one. So what we'll have is we have, I think it's called portal.chain.centrifuge.io, which is deployed on Netlify from our fork of the polka.js repo that you can also find, and we're sort of continuously updating that and merging that as necessary. But and also it sort of if that fails to if that fails for use, meaning like is not available, then you will have the option to just deploy your own based on the fork that we have on GitHub.
Cool. And then Lucas already mentioned this. The Parity Signer is a new resource that you should be aware of. Again, it does need to be updated with Centrifuge network IDs. And so Parity will likely not be able to release an updated version for some time after the launch. It could be anywhere from a couple of weeks to more than a few weeks. We obviously can't say. And so you won't be able to sign transactions with the address that you generate with Parity Signer until they do release this new version. But you can still use this to generate an address securely. So just something to keep in mind. And definitely would encourage you to use something that's more secure like this going forward. Cool. So I would just open it up to any other feedback or questions. I just want to mention quickly that Lucas is going to be giving an overview of the business side of Centrifuge actually after this call during the Parity and Friends crowdcast. So here's the link if you'd like to join that as well. But otherwise, I'd just like it to open it up to any other questions that you all have. Feel free to ask me. I can go back to any of the slides.
Question on subkey and what version to use to generate the addresses. I mean, I downloaded version, I think 2.0.0, and it didn't have the network for Centrifuge. So I got the latest one, which was, I believe, Alpha 3, and it had it, but I just had a question. Is that the correct version to use for mainnet launch?
Can take this one. We are about to lock the version of Substrate that we're going to use on our chain, and we believe that's going to be Alpha 3. So it's most likely going to be that, but we can confirm that in the channel as soon as possible with the instructions for Flint and so on.
Okay, I'll stand by for that then. And I actually had one other one. We were talking about the multi-sig for stash accounts. I wasn't quite sure if I caught it. Is that going to be ready for the soft launch, or is that a future enhancement?
Yeah, I think that Miguel, right? The palette is in, or is going into,
Yeah, we are gonna make it ready for the soft launch. It's gonna be merged in the next couple of days, or probably tomorrow. But yeah, we would like to run this as well through auditors. But it will, if there is anything that happens, we will do an upgrade to fix it during the time frame we have for the on-chain upgrade. But it will be ready for the, in the next couple of days. So yeah, ready for the soft launch.
Okay, great, thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions? If
Hey,
not, we
thanks.
can...
Quick question.
yeah.
And thanks for doing this, AMA. Can you drop this deck into the Slack for everyone to view?
Yeah, for sure. I'll drop the deck, and I actually just started recording once Miguel started speaking. So I'll drop the recording in Slack as well for those who were not able to catch it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's see. Got it. Cool. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to, of course, reach out to any of us in the community Slack or directly if any questions come up. Always happy to answer them. The more questions, the smoother I think the next few weeks are going to be.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.